Hi, my name is Kevin, and not too long ago, I got a job helping out at a little cafe in St. Augustine, Florida, the oldest city in America. It was a funny old place, with crooked wooden floors, creaky windows, and a tiny back door that hardly anyone ever used. At night, it got really quiet, except for the sounds of the waves crashing far off and the wind whistling down the empty streets. I didn't mind working the late shift. I would wash the dishes, sweep the floors, and make sure all the doors were locked tight. At least that's what I used to think was enough. Until the night of the knock. It was a chilly night. I was wiping the counters, ready to go home, when knock, knock, knock. I froze. The sound came from the back door. That was strange. No one ever came to the back door. It was old and rusty and stayed locked all the time. Only Mr. Bennett, the cafe owner, had the key, and he had already left hours ago. I tiptoed toward the door. Knock, knock, knock. A little louder this time. "Hello?" I called out. My voice sounded small in the dark kitchen. No answer. Just the cold wind whistling under the doorframe. I didn't know what to do. Maybe it was a lost tourist? Or someone who needed help? Slowly, carefully, I reached for the doorknob. It was icy cold. I opened the door a crack and peeked outside. There was no one there. Just the empty alley, the moonlight shining on the cobblestones, and the faraway sound of waves crashing. I closed the door quickly and locked it again. Maybe it was just the wind, I told myself. Just the wind. But when I turned around, I saw them. Wet footprints. Big, soggy footprints. Like someone had been standing out in the rain, but it hadn't rained all day. Leading across the kitchen floor. Step, step, step. The footprints were headed toward me. My heart started pounding so loud I could barely hear. I backed away, my shoes squeaking on the wet floor. The footprints weren't stopping. They moved across the kitchen, past the sinks, past the fridges, and straight toward the big swinging door that led to the front of the cafe. Squeak! The door swung open, all by itself. I gasped and dropped my cleaning rag. There was no one there. But the wet footprints kept going, right past the tables and chairs, toward the jukebox in the corner. Yes, even our little cafe had an old jukebox. Suddenly, the jukebox lit up and started playing a slow, sad song, all by itself. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But my legs felt frozen. I stared at the footprints. They stopped right in front of the jukebox. And then, knock, knock, knock. This time, it wasn't at the back door. The knocking came from inside the room, right next to me, on the wall. Like someone trapped between the walls was banging, trying to get out. Knock, knock, knock. I ran. I didn't even grab my jacket. I just ran out the front door and didn't stop until I was home, tucked under my blankets with the lights on. The next morning I went back with Mr. Bennett. He didn't seem surprised when I told him what happened. "You saw her, didn't you?" he said quietly. "Who?" I whispered. "Miss Lila," he said. "A long time ago, this cafe used to be a little boarding house. One stormy night, Miss Lila got trapped in the back alley when the floodwaters came up. She knocked and knocked on the door for someone to let her in, but no one heard her." I swallowed hard. "Now," Mr. Bennett said, "on some nights, when the wind is just right, she still comes back. She still knocks. And sometimes, she makes it inside." I never worked the late shift alone again. And sometimes, when I pass that little cafe at night, I swear I hear it. A soft, slow song playing by itself. And a faint, ghostly knock, knock, knock. My name is Joey, and last fall, I got a job cleaning up at an old bar in Galena, Illinois. It was a quiet little place, way out on Main Street, surrounded by big trees and old brick buildings. The bar wasn't busy anymore. Most nights it was just empty stools, dusty tables, and a jukebox that hadn't worked in years. I didn't mind though. I liked being alone. I would sweep the floors, wipe the counters, and listen to the soft creaks and groans of the old building. But then, strange things started happening. It always began around 3 a.m. The first time I was mopping near the front door. Everything was still and silent. And then, ring-gag. The old landline phone behind the bar shrieked so loud that I jumped and dropped my mop. At first, I thought maybe it was Mr. Caleb, the owner, calling to check on me. But when I picked up the phone and said, "Hello?" there was no voice, just the sound of heavy, slow breathing. My skin prickled. I said, "Hello?" again, louder. Still no words, just that awful breathing, like someone was standing right behind me. I spun around. No one was there. I slammed the phone down and tried to laugh it off. Maybe it was just a prank, I thought. Maybe it was just the wind. But the next night, it happened again, and again. Every single night at exactly 3 a.m. Ring-geeg! And every time when I picked it up, heavy breathing. No words, no name, just breathing, and something else. If I listened really carefully, I could hear something faint, floating through the phone. It was music. Old, scratchy music, like the songs that used to play on the broken jukebox. But the jukebox hadn't worked in years. Mr. Caleb told me it didn't even have any power running to it anymore. So how was I hearing music? One night, I decided to be brave. When the phone rang, I grabbed it fast and said, "Who is this?" The breathing stopped. The music got louder, and then, through the crackly sound, I heard a voice whisper, "Come back! Downstairs!" My heart dropped into my shoes. There was a downstairs, a dusty old basement no one used anymore. Mr. Caleb had told me to never go down there. I hung up the phone so fast it nearly flew across the bar. But something was pulling me toward the basement door. I didn't want to go down there, I really didn't. But my feet moved anyway, like they were being tugged by invisible hands. The door creaked open all by itself. I stood at the top of the dark, rickety stairs, peeking down into the blackness. And then, the broken jukebox turned on. Upstairs, behind me, the jukebox lit up, glowing with a weird green light, playing a song all by itself. A song from a long, long time ago. I heard footsteps, slow, heavy footsteps, coming from the basement below. Thump, 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 getting closer and closer. I slammed the door shut and ran out the front of the old bar as fast as my legs could carry me, not even locking up behind me. The next day, I quit. I told Mr. Caleb everything. About the phone calls, about the breathing, about the jukebox. He didn't look surprised. He just shook his head and said, "You're not the first, Joey. You won't be the last." He told me that a long, long time ago, the old bar had been owned by a man named Mr. Jasper. Mr. Jasper loved music more than anything. He would stay late every night, playing the jukebox until he fell asleep. One night, the bar caught fire. They found Mr. Jasper in the basement. He had tried to save the jukebox, but it was too late. Since then, every person who worked late alone heard the phone ring, heard the breathing, heard the music, and sometimes, if they listened too long, they never came back upstairs. Now, when I walk by the old bar late at night, I keep my head down and my feet moving fast. But sometimes, just sometimes, when the wind is really strong, I swear I hear a faint sound floating out from the building, a phone ringing, a song playing, and someone, somewhere, still waiting for someone to answer. The phone call after hours. My name is Tommy, and last summer I worked at a little old bar right by the Ohio River in Madison, Indiana. It was a small, quiet place where folks came after fishing or working all day. Nothing too fancy, just a long bar, a few wobbly stools, and some old pictures on the walls. It was my first time working there all by myself at night. I wasn't scared, not really. I had my keys, my flashlight, and Mr. Denny, the owner, said, "You'll be fine." Nothing ever happens here. But he forgot to tell me about the man who never left. The first night, I saw him. I was wiping the counter when I noticed an old man sitting at the far end of the bar. He wore a dusty green jacket and a big brown hat pulled low over his face. He didn't say a word. He just nodded real slow and pointed to a spot on the counter. I hurried over. "What can I get you, sir?" I asked. He didn't speak. He just tapped the counter with one finger. So I gave him a root beer, because that's what most older folks liked. He nodded again, real slow, and took a sip. I turned away to grab some napkins, but when I looked back, he was gone. The glass of root beer sat there, still full, not even touched. My heart thumped hard in my chest. I even checked the door, but it was still locked tight. I thought, maybe I imagined it. Maybe I was just tired. But the next night, it happened again. And the next. And the next. Always the same. The old man in the green jacket and brown hat, sitting quietly at the end of the bar, pointing with one bony finger, never speaking, never drinking. One night, I got brave. I decided to talk to him a little more. "Sir," I said, my voice shaking, "do you need anything else?" Slowly, very slowly, he raised his head. I saw his face for the first time. His eyes were pale gray, almost white, and his skin looked thin and papery, like old leaves in the fall. He opened his mouth like he was about to say something, but no words came out. Just a dry, rasping sound like the wind through dead trees. I took a step back, and then he vanished, right in front of me. 1 second he was there, and then poof, just an empty stool and a full glass of root beer. I dropped the napkins and ran out the front door so fast I almost left my shoes behind. The next morning, I told Mr. Denny everything. I expected him to laugh at me, but he didn't. He just looked real serious and said, "Tommy, I should have warned you." Then he told me about old Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter used to come to the bar every night for 40 years. He sat in the same spot at the bar, wearing the same green jacket and brown hat. He never talked much, just drank his root beer and watched the river through the window. One night, years ago, Mr. Carter finished his root beer, stood up, and fell over right there at the bar. His heart had just stopped. They tried to save him, but it was too late. Ever since then, every bartender who worked alone at night saw him, sitting at his usual stool, waiting for his last drink. Mr. Denny said, "He's not mean. He's just stuck. He doesn't know he's gone." That made my skin crawl. That night I came back to the bar. I didn't want to, but Mr. Denny promised he'd stay close, just outside. Sure enough, right when the clock struck 10 p.m., the door creaked, even though it was locked. And there he was, Mr. Carter, sitting at his stool. I walked over, my hands shaking so hard I almost dropped the glass. I set down a fresh root beer in front of him. He didn't move. I said, "This one's for you, Mr. Carter." Then something strange happened. He lifted the glass, just a little, and smiled, just for a second. Then he and the glass faded away like smoke in the wind. And after that, he never came back again. I guess maybe he just needed someone to remember him, to say goodbye. But even now, when I pass the bar late at night, I swear I can see a figure sitting by the window, looking out at the river, still waiting, still watching, still there. The man who never left. Hi, my name is Maddie, and I have something really scary to tell you. It all started when I was feeling very, very sad. You see, I used to have a best friend named Tommy, but we decided not to be friends anymore. It wasn't because we were mean or anything. We just didn't feel happy together like before. Still, my heart felt all broken. One thing I missed the most was how Tommy and I used to play pool together. That's a game where you hit balls into little pockets on a table. We were so good at it. We used to go to a funny old place called Rusty's Bar in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. It was sticky and dark and smelled like old wood, but it had the best pool tables ever. One night, I felt super lonely. My house was so quiet it almost hurt my ears. It was a cold Wednesday, and none of my friends could play. I thought, maybe I'll go to Rusty's by myself, just to feel a little less lonely. When I got there, it looked just the same. Dim lights, squeaky stools, and an old jukebox playing slow songs. I almost turned around because it made me miss Tommy even more, but I took a deep breath and stayed. I grabbed a big stick called a cue and started chalking the tip when someone tapped my shoulder. I jumped a little. It was a man, not too old, maybe about my big brother's age. He had scruffy hair and a crooked smile. "Want to play?" he asked. I nodded because playing sounded better than being sad. We played game after game. He wasn't as good as Tommy, but he wasn't terrible either. He even bought me a fizzy drink. But as we played, I noticed something strange. He kept looking at me funny, like he wanted something. After the fourth game, he leaned real close and said, "Want to come to my house now?" I blinked. My belly twisted in a funny way. I shook my head real fast and said, "No, thank you." That's when his face changed. His smile went away. He looked angry. His eyes got all small and mean. "Are you serious?" he said in a loud, scary voice. Before I knew it, he grabbed my wrist, hard. I gasped. Then he snatched my bag right out of my hands. I was too scared to even scream. I just froze. Even though we were in a public place, I felt so alone. But then, two old grandpas sitting at the bar stood up. One of them shouted, "Let her go!" The man looked at them, muttered something scary under his breath and threw my bag back at me. Then he stomped out of the bar. I was shaking so hard I thought my knees would fall off. I called a ride on my phone, and a nice driver came to pick me up. I climbed into the car and leaned back. I felt safe, for a little while. I must have fallen asleep because the next thing I knew, the driver was gently shaking my arm. "We're here," he said. I got out, still sleepy, and walked up to my house. As I dug in my bag for my keys, I checked my phone. That's when I saw it. A big, scary warning. It said, "AirTag found moving with you." My heart dropped into my stomach. My fingers fumbled through my bag until they touched something weird, a little white circle. An AirTag. I pulled it out and my hands started to shake. Someone had hidden it in my bag to follow me home. I looked around. The street was empty and cold. My breath came out in white puffs. I stomped on the AirTag over and over until it broke into pieces. Then I grabbed my bag and ran to the back door. I fumbled with my keys, finally got inside and slammed the door shut. I locked every lock I had, but my heart wouldn't stop pounding. I ran upstairs and peeked out my bedroom window. At first, everything was quiet. I thought maybe I was safe. Then I saw it. A beat-up, old, dirty Lincoln car driving very, very slowly past my house. I held my breath. It turned around and came back, even slower. The driver was looking at every house, every window, trying to find me. It was him. I knew it. The third time the car passed, I could see his face staring out the window, searching, hunting. I wanted to scream, but I stayed low, hiding by the window, my heart beating like a big drum in my ears. I stayed there until I couldn't see the car anymore. But even now, when I hear a car drive by at night, I still wonder if it's him, coming back, looking for me. Hi there, my name is Sammy. I work at a big restaurant in Austin, Texas, where people come to eat burgers and drink sodas. It's always super loud with music and laughing and dancing. There aren't any waiters, just people like me standing behind the counter. If you want food, you have to come up to us and ask. It's busy all the time, and I like it because I never get bored. One night, I knew it was going to be extra busy. It was Saturday, and lots of people were coming in. Young college kids dancing, laughing, and sometimes even spilling their drinks all over the floor. I was running around trying to keep up. It was so noisy I could barely hear myself think. Then, I saw something strange. Way in the back corner of the restaurant, there was an old man and an old lady sitting at a little booth. They looked so old, like really, really old. Their skin was pale like paper, and they sat super still, not moving at all. At first I thought, maybe they're just waiting for someone. So I kept working. But every time I looked up, they were still sitting there. Not eating, not drinking, not even talking. They just stared at the wall like statues. I got a weird feeling in my tummy, like when you feel sick and you don't know why. Finally, when I had a little break, I decided to go talk to them. I smiled really big and said, "Hi there. Would you like something to eat or drink?" They didn't move. The lady kept staring at the wall like I wasn't even there. The old man, though, he moved his head very, very slowly, like he was a rusty robot. When I saw his face, I almost screamed. His skin looked like it was melting, and his eyes were dark holes that stared right into me. He didn't say a word. He just shook his head very slowly. I felt a cold shiver run up my back. I mumbled, "Okay," and ran back behind the counter as fast as I could. My heart was pounding like a drum. I tried not to look at them again. But later that night, I made a mistake. I glanced over to their booth, and they were both staring right at me. Their heads were turned all the way toward me, and their eyes were wide open. They didn't blink, they didn't smile, they just stared. I quickly looked away, pretending to wipe the counter. When I peeked again, the booth was empty. They were gone. I felt a little better. Maybe they just left. Maybe they were never real. I tried to finish my work, but I kept feeling like someone was watching me. When it was time to close up, I told my friend Miss Katie, who works with me, "Did you see that old man and lady in the corner?" Miss Katie looked at me funny. "What old man and lady?" "The ones sitting at the booth. They didn't eat anything." Miss Katie shook her head. "I didn't see anyone like that." I felt my heart drop. I told her again, but she just laughed and said, "Maybe you're seeing ghosts." I laughed a little, but inside, I was so scared. After we locked up the restaurant, I walked really fast to my car. I kept looking over my shoulder, feeling like something bad was about to happen. I dropped my keys once because my hands were shaking. Then I looked across the street. Under the streetlight, I saw them. The old man, the old lady, standing there, staring, not moving. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I fumbled with my keys, jumped into my car, and locked the doors fast. I sped away, not daring to look back. The whole drive home I kept whispering, "Oh no, oh no, oh no." I felt like they could somehow be following me. I didn't even turn on my lights when I got home. I hid under my blankets and prayed they didn't find me. I never saw them again. But sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see them watching me.